I put this old quilt through the wash so that I could use it. It turns out the wash decided it didn't like the quilt and it took out some pieces from it, which means that I have to try my hand at quilting and patch it up so I can use it some more. Upon closer inspection, we have some ragged edges with a nice large hole in the white section. I'll start with that first just because it is the biggest piece. There are 2 sections of batting that have been torn out, and that means that I'm going to have to add some more batting so that it doesn't end up being cold in that spot. I found some batting that I was using for another project, and I cut out a piece that would fit over both holes and just fill in that space. I started out by actually stitching down in 3 different spots the batting so that it wouldn't move around during sewing. At the quilt shop I had found this white cotton cloth that, even though it's not the same color, it's an off-white, so hopefully with a couple of washes it'll start to look like the rest of the quilt. I used a running stitch that was very small to sew down the edges, and then of course I had to replicate that decorative swoosh that the original designer put on the quilt. Then I decided to deal with the second largest hole, and that was in the steeple. I found a blue cloth that would work just fine as a patch, and I had to overlap the blue with the white in order to be able to secure everything together. The old white cloth that joined the 2 pieces together was actually really narrow, and I knew that it wouldn't be able to hold up with time. So overlapping the blue patch and the white patch was a way to make things a little more sturdy. I couldn't find a plain pink fabric that would work with this project, so I ended up finding a pattern one that was kind of the same color. I decided since it was a patterned fabric, I would turn those patches into a little window. And of course I had to put 2 windows, not just 1. I finished off those windows with some white thread in order to replicate the panes that are shown in other windows on the church. And there we have it. It's not perfect, but that's okay. It just means that this will be a well-loved quilt for a really long time. Some bonus content: there was another hole that needed to be patched, and right below where that patch ended up being, there was a spot in the quilt that was worn really thin. So we had the side-to-side threads, but the up and down threads were missing. So I decided to use some white thread in order to cover up that worn spot and tack it down so that hopefully it won't tear and become a new hole.